It all started during what was supposed to be a light-hearted interview on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. The audience buzzed with excitement as Elon Musk, the famous entrepreneur behind Tesla, SpaceX, and countless other ventures, took the stage. Stephen Colbert greeted him with his signature blend of warmth and sarcasm, expecting a lively but friendly conversation. For the first few minutes, everything went as planned. Elon shared updates about his latest projects, joked about Mars colonization, and the crowd laughed and applauded. But under the surface, tension simmered. Stephen had a few sharper questions lined up. Ones he suspected Elon wouldn't appreciate. Stephen decided to dive in deeper. Smiling innocently, he leaned forward and asked, "So Elon, at what point does innovation become recklessness? You know, when launching a sports car into space is just showing off." The audience chuckled nervously. Elon stiffened slightly but tried to laugh it off. "It's about inspiring people," he replied coolly. Stephen, sensing an opening, pressed it on. "Inspiring or distracting? There's been criticism lately about how you juggle your companies, your tweets, your grand promises, sometimes without delivering." The atmosphere shifted. Elon's eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. The banter was slipping into confrontation, and the audience could feel it. Elon responded sharply, "If you never take risks, you never achieve greatness." His tone was clipped, and the audience let out a collective "ooh," sensing the rising heat. Stephen, always quick with the retort, smirked and said, "Sure, but if you promise a hyperloop, brain chips, self-driving cars, Mars cities, underground highways, robot butlers, and then call people pedos on Twitter, isn't that maybe a bit much?" Laughter rippled through the crowd, but Elon wasn't laughing. His jaw tightened. For a split second, it looked like he might walk off then and there. Instead, he leaned in, voice low and controlled. "You don't build the future by playing it safe for TV ratings," Elon said. The words hung heavy in the air. Stephen didn't back down. He knew how interviews worked. Conflict made headlines. "I agree," Stephen said smoothly, "but some would say you build it with accountability ... and maybe fewer late-night Twitter battles." More laughter, but it was nervous now. Elon sat back, crossing his arms. The warmth that had initially filled the studio had vanished, replaced by a tense chill. Stephen was about to pivot to a lighter topic when Elon interrupted, voice rising slightly. "You mock what you don't understand," he snapped. The audience gasped. Stephen raised an eyebrow, amused but alert. "I understand ambition," Stephen said. "What I don't understand is why someone with all the brains and resources in the world would waste time picking fights online instead of changing the world offline." The shot landed. Elon's face darkened visibly. He adjusted his jacket, clearly trying to keep his cool. "You sit behind a desk making jokes," Elon said. "I'm out there risking billions to build a better future." The air grew heavier. Even the band, usually ready to play a jaunty riff during tense moments, stayed completely silent. Stephen leaned forward again, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret. "It's not about building rockets, Elon. It's about building trust. And maybe, just maybe, trolling strangers on Twitter and firing employees over email doesn't inspire trust." The crowd murmured in agreement. Elon's lips pressed into a thin line. He looked over at the audience, at the cameras, calculating. He had handled hostile interviews before, but this wasn't the reporter he could dodge. This was a comedian with the national audience hanging on to every word, every smirk. Stephen's jabs were funny but cutting, and Elon was bleeding. Trying to regain the upper hand, Elon fired back, "I could buy this show 10 times over if I wanted to." A few gasps and uncomfortable laughter trickled through the crowd. Stephen's eyes widened dramatically. "Oh no," he said in mock horror. "Is this where you offer to turn the Late Show into the Musk Show? Will there be flamethrowers under every seat?" The audience roared with laughter at that. Elon didn't smile. He looked furious. Stephen's tone shifted slightly, still playful but with an unmistakable edge. "Money doesn't automatically make you right, Elon," he said. "Sometimes it just makes you louder." Elon leaned closer, voice dropping to a near growl. "You wouldn't last one day doing what I do." Stephen chuckled, brushing imaginary dust off his suit. "You're probably right," he said, "but I also wouldn't call a hero diver a pedo because he criticized my submarine." The audience gasped again, louder this time. Elon shot to his feet, his face flushed. "This interview is over," he snapped. The studio lights felt hotter, harsher. Stephen remained seated, perfectly composed. "If you can't handle a few questions, how will you handle building a colony on Mars?" he quipped as Elon began storming off. The cameras followed Elon as he strode angrily across the stage. Stephen stood up now, turning to the audience with a theatrical shrug. "Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Elon Musk, a visionary, innovator, terrible sport." The crowd clapped awkwardly, some cheering, others unsure. Elon disappeared backstage, pushing past startled crew members. Producers scrambled to figure out what to do next. Stephen, ever the professional, pivoted seamlessly. "Well," he said, "we were going to talk about sustainable energy next, but I guess he just ran out of it." The audience laughed, the tension slowly beginning to lift. Backstage, Elon paced furiously, demanding to speak with the show's executive producer. Staff members tried to calm him down, but Elon wasn't having it. He muttered about ambush journalism, disrespect, and media bias. Meanwhile, Stephen wrapped up the segment with a few more jokes, clearly not shaken. "You know," he said, "I always dreamed of interviewing the real Iron Man. Turns out, he's more tinfoil than titanium." The crowd exploded with laughter. As the show cut to a commercial break, Twitter lit up with clips of the argument. Within minutes, Colbert versus Musk was trending worldwide, with everyone taking sides. By the time the show ended, media outlets were already drafting headlines. "Elon Musk storms off Colbert's set. Colbert destroys Musk in heated debate. Late Show turns into showdown." Meanwhile, Elon's team issued a terse statement blaming Stephen for unprofessional behavior and personal attacks. Stephen's team responded just as quickly, releasing a statement emphasizing that The Late Show was about humor, honesty, and holding powerful people accountable. Fans debated furiously online, some praising Stephen for standing up to Elon, others accusing him of being unfair. Regardless, the footage had gone viral, racking up millions of views within hours. Behind the scenes, CBS executives were a mix of thrilled and panicked. Thrilled because ratings were through the roof, but panicked about potential fallout. Elon Musk wasn't just a celebrity, he was an industry powerhouse. Angering him could mean losing future guests or sponsorships. Yet, many quietly admired Stephen for holding his ground. "It's what late night used to be about," one executive reportedly said, pushing back against the powerful, not pandering to them. Stephen, meanwhile, prepared for his next show like nothing had happened, already crafting new jokes about the incident. He understood better than anyone that controversy was fuel. Elon didn't stay silent for long. The next morning, he tweeted, "Late night TV, where bravery is a scripted joke and cowardice hides behind a laugh track. #fake bravery." The tweet went viral instantly. Stephen responded during his monologue that night. "I must have hit a nerve," he said with a grin. "Maybe I should start rating billionaires like his cars." Musk, 0 to offended in 3.2 seconds. The audience howled. The battle between the talk show host and the tech titan had officially become a pop culture event, with memes, GIFs, and reaction videos flooding every corner of the internet. In the days that followed, pundits weighed in. Some praised Stephen for daring to question a man many treated like a messianic figure. Others criticized him for what they saw as cheap shots at someone trying to change the world. Elon's defenders argued that innovators needed room to dream without being mocked. Stephen's supporters countered that power without accountability was dangerous, no matter how brilliant the individual. Amidst the noise, Stephen remained calm. He knew controversy was fleeting. What mattered was the principle behind the confrontation, asking hard questions even when it was uncomfortable. Several celebrities even jumped into the fray. Robert Downey Jr., jokingly tweeting, "At least Tony Stark could take a joke," drew massive attention. Meanwhile, Neil deGrasse Tyson tweeted diplomatically, "Science and innovation thrive best when they're strong enough to withstand scrutiny and humor." Public opinion remained sharply divided, but if anyone had lost, it wasn't Stephen. His ratings continued to climb. Bookers for the show even reported that guest inquiries had increased. "Everyone loves a good controversy," one staff member said, "as long as it isn't their controversy." Stephen just kept smiling, sharpening his next monologue. Elon, however, seemed genuinely rattled. For someone who thrived on adoration and admiration, being publicly humiliated wasn't easy to swallow. Privately, insiders reported, he regretted walking off but refused to apologize. His public image took a minor dent, but not a fatal one. His die-hard fans remained loyal. His critics grew louder. Meanwhile, Stephen's carefully balanced act of holding powerful figures to account while still being entertaining earned new respect from unexpected places, including other late-night hosts who secretly envied the boldness of what he had done. In a rare interview a few weeks later, Stephen reflected briefly on the incident. "Sometimes people forget that jokes are meant to pop bubbles," he said. "If someone's work can survive a few jokes, then it's probably strong enough to survive on Mars." He smiled, letting the comment hang without further explanation. He didn't need to say more. The audience understood. The role of satire wasn't to worship power but to challenge it, to remind the world that even the mighty were human and sometimes hilariously flawed. Elon, true to form, didn't let the feud die quietly. Months later, during a tech conference, he joked that he was working on a sarcasm detector for TV hosts. It turned laughs, but the sting remained. Everyone knew who he was referring to. Stephen, during his next show, responded with mock alarm. "A sarcasm detector? Great, now my toaster will judge me too." The audience roared. What had started as a heated argument had become an ongoing, if reluctant, comedic rivalry, one that neither side could fully walk away from, each encounter fueling the other's mythos. By the end of the year, when top TV moments of the year lists came out, Stephen Colbert kicking Elon Musk off The Late Show ranked near the top. Analysts called it a defining moment for late-night television, a rare, unscripted confrontation that felt raw and real in an era where most celebrity interviews were carefully curated fluff. Stephen's boldness resonated with viewers tired of polished PR answers and safe comedy. Even critics admitted, love him or hate him, Colbert had reminded America what late night coulda and shoulda be. And so, the legend of that chaotic night lived on. For Stephen, it was another battle scar on a career built from sharp wit and sharper truths. For Elon, it was a humbling reminder that even titans weren't invincible. The stage lights eventually dimmed, the headlines faded, but the clip remained immortal online. Stephen leaning back in his chair, Elon storming off. The audience caught between shock and laughter, a moment where entertainment collided with ego and the world watched, enthralled.